And to build on top of that, what I would like to say is that our team is a bunch of people that loves Italian wine and we love Asia. This is the place we call home. And that's why we want to act as enablers and ambassadors to develop, together with the wineries and together with our local customers, bold, fresh, and culturally active strategies to accelerate our ability to create growth for these fantastic products and brands. That's our main dream.
Welcome to this special Clubhouse session of the Italian Wine Podcast. Listen in as members of the Italian wine community engage in fascinating conversations about contemporary wine topics. If you enjoyed the show, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. And remember to subscribe and rate the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your pods.
Hi everyone, my name is Beatrice and welcome to Clubhouse, the Ambassador Corner. Our Clubhouse has been ranking the top amongst Italian wine podcast shows. The show's concept is to let Italian wine ambassadors have the opportunity to interview their favorite producer. This session is recorded and will be released in Italian Wine Podcast to reach more listeners, and especially for those who cannot participate due to time zone differences. Born in Chioggia near Venice, Marco graduated in economics at Bocconi University in Milan. After working in financial institutions for 12 years, he set up on a sailing trip around the world, ending up in New Zealand, wow Marco, where he took over a languishing Italian wine importing company. He turned it around to become the leading importer and distributor of Italian wines in New Zealand. He organized large portfolio tasting events open to the trade and the public. He became Italian Wine Ambassador in 2023 under the teaching of Sarah Heller. Congratulations, Marco, really.
Thank you very much, Bea.
Today he's going to interview Vera Malisani and Anna Campagna from Ethica Wines. So, Marco, Anna, and Vera, are you ready?
Yes,
we are.
Perfect.
Indeed.
And Marco, are you ready for our 3 ritual questions?
100% ready.
Perfect. So, how did you discover Ethica Wines?
So I came across Ethica by chance while importing Italian wines in New Zealand. This is in 2019. I was importing the wines of Barone Ricasoli. And at the time, Ethica took over distribution of the exports of Ricasoli wines. So I got in touch with Ethica. However, I have to say that this meeting with Ethica is not really by chance because I made an observation throughout my working as an importer about the distance and the kind of a gap existing between wineries in Italy and importers, I suppose, throughout the world. I explained myself briefly, and then I will let Anna and Vera to expand on that. So I can see wineries, large wineries like Antinori, Santa Margherita, for example, and others, establishing a direct presence in the distribution and importing in the main markets like US and UK. On the other end of the spectrum, I can see large importers having a specialized figure among their staff, like specializing in logistics, in marketing, in promotions. However, I suspect that most of the situations are average wineries in relationship with average importers, where this gap needs to be filled. And this is the situation that happened with Sapore d'Italia, my company in New Zealand. So hence the need of help, I think, here in this area. And hence the conversation we're going to have, I think is going to be very interesting with Anna and Vera of Ethica Wines.
Wow, perfect. So tell us, why did you select Vera and Anna as your featured guest today?
Well, I think they are perfect representative of the company, especially in the Asia Pacific region. They can give us a bio, of course, and their role in the company. But I think they are dynamic, energetic. I think they will be able to express the importance of a company like Ethica in filling this gap, in helping what we all aim for, that is increasing the distribution of Italian wines in Asia Pacific in particular in an efficient and cost-effective and market-productive way.
What are the learning objectives that we should expect from this interview?
Well, I think number one is many importers, in particular, and many wineries probably, this is my suspicion, they don't know that there is this possibility of having an actor in between this relationship. So you have wineries that they focus on making the best wine for the territory. On the other hand, importers are focusing on the main job, that is creating strong relationship with key buyers in the market. In the middle, of course, it can be filled somehow, as I did with Supported Italia for most of the time. But I think there is an area where it can be done in a more efficient, as I say, in a more market effective way, meaning better outcomes. And I think this conversation will probably provide more information about this.
Perfect. That sounds like a really nice plan. So it's time for me to mute myself, and I'm turning over the floor to you, Marco. Have a nice interviews, guys.
Very good. Thank you very much, Bia. So first of all, Anna and Vera, I would like if you could please provide the audience with a short bio information about how you enter into the wine world and how you joined Ethica. Probably Anna first, in alphabetical order, so I don't want to run into
Alphabetical
trouble.
order. We are pretty much at the extremes of the alphabet, as a matter of fact. Okay, so first of all, very happy to be here. So thanks for having me together with Vera. So I was thinking about the way to introduce myself, and interestingly enough, the tagline of Ethica Wines is very pertinent in the case of my life story as well: Italian roots and global reach. I was born in Libya, raised on the Lake of Como. My roots are between Bologna and the foot of Mount Etna, so all the way down to Catania. I have worked and lived in 4 different continents for a variety of multinational companies. And I have relocated for the second time, and happily so, in Singapore 1 year ago. Interestingly enough, Marco, I've just discovered that we are schoolmates because I'm also a Bocconiana. So that's where my
Fantastic.
say path started, and very proudly so. Great experience, and that's, I believe, the first step into my international exploration. Bocconi is a university that really opens the doors of exploration in the world of business, and not just Italy. And so I haven't stopped ever since. Now, how do I fit into this fascinating and extremely complex wine world? Well, thanks to beer, I have to say. So I've been working for more than 2 decades for Heineken around the world. And at the very beginning of my Heineken journey, actually, I met Francesco Gans, that is, as we all know, the CEO of Ethica Wines. We've been in touch, up and downs, up and downs. I went to work abroad after working with him, and then after a while, he started his entrepreneurial path. And we met again on Dolomite a few years ago, and that's where the conversation got reignited, so to say. So, what we share is this incredible pride of being Italians in the world, and of course a big passion for alcoholic drinks, beer and wine and the likes of that. And when Francesco told me that he really wanted to explore better growth opportunities in Asia Pacific, I didn't ask him to repeat the question whether I was interested. And so that's where I am now, bringing the Italian passion for quality combined with incredible love for Asia Pacific, and the happiness of being back into this continent. That's about me.
Fantastic. Absolutely interesting. Okay, so I will pass on to Vera.
So I will continue following the shadow of Anna's stories with more Italian roots, global reach. Very similarly to Marco, I was born in Italy, in the outskirts of Venice. And there I grew up in the vineyards and working in the wine cellars of a very prestigious hotel in Venice. And that's how, and also I harvested like everybody in the countryside in Venice, and tasting wine and following the local culture of really wine appreciation, especially with my great grandparents and parents. And I was studying at some point in Trieste, simultaneous interpreting. So I always had the passion for languages, travel, and let's say doing it the hard way. At the same time, to pay my university studies, I was working as a sommelier, and I graduated at the Italian School of Sommelier de ICE in 2011. And the combination of these two paths brought me to live pretty much everywhere in the world, in Australia, in the UK, in Spain, in the US, and eventually Hong Kong, China, and now where I currently base in Bangkok. But as soon as I moved, I realized that the beauty of wine culture was something really running deep in my vein, and I was so proud of. I couldn't really be authentic and true to myself if I were not to promote my roots. So I ended up working in wine, and in 2013 turning my dream into my job. That's when I met Francesco Ganz, the current CEO of Ethica Wines, and together we basically set up Ethica Wines roots in Asia Pacific. So I've been working with Ethica now for 12 years. We've gone a long way, but as Anna was mentioning, we are just now revamping and relaunching a new, bolder and broader and more ambitious vision for the future of Italian wines in Asia.
Very good, Vera. Seems like a lot of passion and lots of involvement in wine world from you both. So we'll start the interview with the first question. We'll start with Anna. So I would like Anna to describe the Ethica project and mission, particularly in the Asia Pacific market.
Yes. So, as we were saying before, the tagline of Ethica Wines around the world is Italian roots and global reach. So, let me explore these words, roots and reach. Roots is really about the deep connection that we have and we want to keep with Italian winemakers. It's about sharing the love for quality and heritage and making sure that this can travel. Reach is about, whilst respecting our origins, make this beautiful brands and the culture and the families that comes with it travel across the world. And we want to be the ambassadors of this journey. We want to build bridges between wineries and wine producers and on the other hand, wine lovers, and making sure that we serve all the third parties that are between these two extremes so that they connect and they enjoy something great together. This is a bit what Ethica Wines does around the world, but there is an additional element in Asia, Marco, and it's the Green Dragon. This is how Vera and I decided to call this new adventure, which is an accelerated growth in Asia Pacific. We both are very much into Chinese horoscope. And when we started this adventure, it was the year of the dragon. That is a very important and pivotal year in the 12 years of the horoscope in China. So, what is the Green Dragon about? It's about expansion, innovation, and positive transformation. So we're really determined to make sure that Italian wine can really stick across Asia and get to become part of the Asian lifestyle. And that's what actually we feel very excited about.
Well, that's very, very good. I think the idea of expanding into Asia for Italian wineries is very fitting nowadays as a diversification from the main market, even if it will take a long time. But it makes sense to get it started, given the situation in US with tariffs and internationally. I think the presence in Asia of Italian wineries there's definitely room to improve. The next question is for Vera. I would like, Vera, if you can give us an idea of the Ethica size and coverage, please.
Yes, it's an interesting question in a way that I really had to think about the evolution, the fast evolution we had in this short period of time. So the coverage has always been clear is Asia Pacific. So from Asia, we include India, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Mongolia, and we go all the way to Japan, down to New Zealand, of course, but also Fiji, Tonga, and the whole Pacific Islands. So the coverage is pretty self-explained, but the growth and other numbers also always make me feel very proud in a sense that we really started as a startup and we started thanks to a group of wineries asking us to help them to fill a gap basically. So the project was started more already meeting some producers' needs rather than having a very clear idea from the very beginning. And that's how we started really mapping and meeting all the importers and key players and opinion leader in every market. So we were really a startup just with a few thousands euro turnover. In 10 years, we were able to create a very solid network of more than 100 importers in all the countries of Asia Pacific. And we went from two people, so two founders, me and another colleague that I want to mention, Giovanni Oliva, that at that time in 2014 was based in Singapore and was crazy enough together with me to just leave everything we were doing to throw ourselves in this new mission. And that's how we built a team that now counts 8 people. Just this year, we've just changed our organization, as Anna was mentioning before. And so we wanted to create for the first time a headquarters in Bangkok. So before we were sales representatives, let's say regional sales managers in each key country. So we have one person in Japan, one in Hong Kong, one in Bangkok, one in Singapore, one in Sydney. But now, this year, we really wanted to give more structured and back office structure service to importers. So there is a headquarter office in Bangkok, and the sales team is growing from 5 people to tentatively 10 in the next 2 years. I think these numbers, are important to mention because what we want to do is to, as Anna was earlier saying, deeper connections with every channel, every key opinion leader, every stakeholders in order to reach and to have an impact to the final consumers. So in a few years, we built a portfolio that is now counting more than 55 brands. And we are heading to a turnover at the end of our Green Dragon project of $10 million US. This, of course, we all know is Asia. So we can expect much more, or I'm not saying much less. I'm still so convinced that this is just the start to create a solid turning point for the perception, and not just the perception, eventually the consumption of Italian wines. So the limit is the sky, let's say.
Very good, Vera. It's very interesting what you say in terms of how Ethica was born, and it came from the bottom up. Like there was the sense of this gap that I was mentioning in my introduction as well, and I can relate to that. As an importer, it's something you definitely feel, unless, as I say, unless you are a very structured importer that can cover all the boxes. And there are at least 3 areas where, I don't know, but you obviously now in this conversation, you're going to add more areas, but I think that logistic, marketing, and promotions are clearly 3 areas, just to be concrete in what we're talking about. And those areas can definitely, companies like Ethica can definitely fill this gap. So the next question would be, we go into more details in the market. So this is for Anna. What are the main opportunities and difficulties for Italian wines in Asia?
Okay, so there are definitely a lot of opportunities. The first and most important I want to call out is the penetration of Italian wine in Asia Pacific is extremely low. So there, you can only go up. There's a big cake that is called imported wine, and we have a very, very thin slice of this cake. So there's definitely an opportunity. Even if the pie is not growing, we can take over market share from other imported wine. So this should be encouraging, even if the market were to show zero growth, which, by the way, is not the case because the CAGR for wine consumption in Asia are positive. Why are they positive? There is a growing middle class. And that's the first element. So more people getting good disposable income to have a better lifestyle, a better quality of life than their parents and grandparents. The second is every year in Asia, there are millions of people entering the legal drinking age. It's a relatively young population, especially compared to what we call the old continent. Asia is packed with millennials and Zoomers, as I like to call them. The other element is, compared to the past, it's easier to communicate to consumers because of the digital acceleration. And actually, I mean, you can consider even Asia Pacific as the birthplace of digital connection in a way. And because you know more, because you're exposed to more content, then you become more curious. And one thing where curiosity can be really leveraged by Italian wineries, Marco, is that there is something that Italians and Asians have in common, which is food love. And food love calls for wine love. So there's definitely an opportunity to expand and create quality moments as part of the Asian lifestyle. Italy also has a variety of styles, and behind every winery there is a story that can really connect and interact and entertain people. So there's definitely a lot we can do there. It doesn't come for free. There is a price, and the price is that every market has different regulation on alcoholic beverage in general and wine. There's a lot of fragmentation, so it's very difficult to reach scale. That's why you need to decide which are your priorities and your big bets. And the other element is that we are not first comers. French, Chilean, Australian wine has already a very solid footprint. And because they've started way earlier and they counted as a pack. So you can really see the result of that because they're deeply rooted. So we need to fight against the low awareness, low top of mind for Italian wine, although we have great weapons to increase this top of mind. And so there's definitely, we talk about this later, but there's definitely a big work to be done on education, communication, and that, of course, will cost money. It won't come for free. So that's a bit the summary about, a SWOT analysis, so to say.
Very good. And yes, when we talk about this global, as you were mentioning, global approaches, I think there is one risk we need to avoid is the one of standardization, like one solution for every market. And of course, this would create an efficiency, but at the cost of not being relevant for some markets. On the other hand, there is the risk of duplications. If each market does its own things, its own marketing, promotion, logistic solutions, there's a risk of doubling up and the waste of resources. It's not an efficient way of doing it. So this is why you need to have a balanced approach, in my opinion. This is what you were mentioning as well. So the next question, I think it would be for Vera. So Vera has a lot of experience in Asia. What are the main differences among the main Asian markets for Italian wines, Vera?
Yeah, the key point here is, as you were saying, we say Asia Pacific, but is a third of the world. So when you say Europe or when you say the US, you have a very clear common thread or common ground of language, of currency, of history. But when it comes to Asia Pacific, we are going in all directions. And so it's really important to have a focus on which markets you really want to reach. And how you have to differentiate your strategy according to the differences of all these markets. So first of all, what we have been doing more and more, let's say, is to identify the markets we want to analyze and not just reach, but we really want to understand and melt with in a way. So key markets are Japan, South Korea, China, Hong Kong, Thailand, and Australia and New Zealand. I would put Pacific together in a sense because we are really investing a lot of energies there. And all these markets have very different histories, consumer age, different barriers when it comes to import, different taxes. So if we just see consumers, for example, the main differences are quite clear. So I know this is hard from the Italian perspective to really see the difference from Japanese consumers and Korean consumers. But for me, after 12 years, it's really like what I also really enjoy and makes my job very cultural and social mediation rather than just wine sales. I've been living in Shanghai for 8 years, and I understood that, for example, learning Chinese, it's essential to blend and get the trust of all the stakeholders. So just mentioning languages, it's one of the barriers that Italians tend sometimes to underestimate. When it comes to the age, for example, in China, there are very, very young consumers, and they are, as Anna was saying, the new middle class. They have a rising interest in wine, but in any other hundreds of categories, and I would say alcohol categories too. So they're very hard to catch and very hard to entertain, very hard to retain. They're very, very demanding. So their parents or grandparents, they were just knowing wine as the red French wine from Bordeaux, but it's just in just one generation, you have a totally complete different consumption pattern. And who had the strategy to communicate big red Italian wines just 10 years ago as totally to change the strategy when trying to sell wine now. There is an raising interest in sparkling and lighter red and white. When it comes to Japan, for example, everybody knows Japan is a more mature, more educated market. The wine consumption per capita is higher, and there is a very high appreciation for quality and food pairing. Whereas in China, there is not this concept of food pairing at all. So Japan is much more similar to how we communicate and sell wine. But on the other side is a very competitive market. So even Italian wine that have a much broader audience have to share the wine consumption with so many small appellations and small wineries. So everything is so fragmented. And trends says that newcomers to the wine drinking age haven't had the chance yet to travel to Europe or Italy as their parents or grandparents did. So there is even again, in Japan, in one generation, a big gap on what is wine perception and wine consumption. I just sometimes mention wine rather than Italian wine because some concept, of course, can apply to both. South Korea is a very interesting market, very young, very dynamic. There are a lot of young professionals and also women, especially, interested in the wine consumption. And we could see this during COVID. There was a huge explosion of Italian wine export to South Korea. It's a very rapidly growing market, and this clashes sometimes with the slow and very traditional approach Italian wineries have. So this is definitely one of the greatest challenges and differences with South Korea. I was mentioning China, another part was e-commerce. E-commerce, basically the new retail channel in China. China is so big that they skipped the step of distributing wine in wine stores. They just sell everything online. Korea, on the opposite side, has the online sales of alcohol forbidden. So a similar market on one side, but completely different on other sides. When it comes to other famous markets, let's say Hong Kong, I know everybody have the perception of Hong Kong as an established, open-minded, and more sophisticated wine consumption market. There are a lot of connoisseurs, a lot of Michelin star restaurants, and there is a high demand for fine wine. So I would say Hong Kong and Singapore are still the places where there is the highest consumption of red fine wines. Bordeaux, Burgundy from France, but in Italy, Barolo, Barbaresco, Amarone, Chianti, Brunello, and so on. And this is still the core in Hong Kong, but again, there are a lot of new influences coming from China, for example, mainland China, or from new dining concepts that are now offering more of a casual environment for drinking. So even one of the most established wine market is really now changing and is really focusing a lot on education, I would say. So this is a very interesting point to pay attention at. When it comes to Southeast Asia, I just mentioned Singapore, which is affluent, cosmopolitan, and very mature, but at the same time is a very small market. So there is a very high competition, and especially from New World wine and champagne. Trends are saying that sparklings, even Italian sparkling, are on the rise, and this is the novelty, let's say, in Singapore, but it's not the only market growing, let's say, established in Asia. Thailand, for example, and that's the reason why we decided to establish our headquarters in Bangkok, is a very established market for Italian wines, is the market where there is the highest number of Italian expats. And so I would also say, together with Japan, the market with the highest presence of very authentic Italian food offer. This really helps to create consumption, culture, interest towards Italian wines and the Italian lifestyle in general. So what may seem a more complicated market like Thailand, which definitely, together with China, the most complicated market that I'm mentioning now, is very much mature on the other side. So when you, Marco, open a very interesting topic, difference is the diversity that are keywords in Asia, and not just it's true now, but it keeps changing and changing. One common thread, as Anna was mentioning earlier, is that there is a good news, I would say, for those who today, that of us today, are trying to analyze the diversity and the different characteristics, is that the newcomers to the wine drinking world are young, adventurous. They look for novelties, for experience, for diversity, for lifestyle, and this is what Italian wine can really offer. So no matter all this diversity, Italy has a great, I would say, part to play in the future. Sorry, it was very long, but the question was maybe the most difficult to answer so far.
Oh, very good, Vera. It's fascinating hearing these cultural differences among different markets and your experience in these markets. It's very, very interesting. And I have a follow-up question about how do you rate what is the current marketing and distribution policy of Italian wines in Asia, and how can we make it more effective and modernize its approach?
This is another big topic to open. I will try to summarize our experience, let's say, is that someone has to approach Asia with a very structured approach, with very clear ideas on key distribution and communication strategy pillars. On the sales side, it's very important to decide which part of the portfolio someone wants to promote. So it's very important to have clear ideas because, as we were saying, these are very young markets approaching wine consumption and really overwhelmed with wine coming from all the parts of the world. And they really have to decide where to bet their money on. So making the life for the consumer easier is very, very important. So it's different from other mature market where you say, okay, I try to offer everything I have because everything is great, is nice, is historical, as a story. And so there is something for every taste. In Asia, you have to take it the other way around. Really be very synthetic in your SKU offer and very analytical and precise in your pricing analysis. So since every market has different tariffs, different import tax, different passages to reach the shelf or the wine list, it's very important to make sure there is a brand value consistency across at least the main markets. This is for me the first two steps that a very effective commercial strategy has to have to approach Asia in a successful way. Let's say less but better, and more oriented in the consumer's shoes and choices. Another important part is to try to, as also Marco, you were mentioning, put yourself in the different consumer habits. And so be much, much closer to the distributor's job, but also to the restaurant job, to the buyer, I would say, buyer job. In this case, what are the selling points to really help players in the supply chain be successful is to give tools, and the tools have to be fitting, have to fit the habits of the consumers. So a lot of online market, a lot of online digital, let's say digital content to be applied in the different social media platform and online sales platform. A lot of visual content, videos, short educational videos, engaging videos to capture the attention and find a place in the consumer's mind. This is a key in markets like China or Korea, I would say. In others, more prone to retail like Korea or Japan, it's very important to have ready-to-use activation material. We find every day, for example, we find interest from buyers that want to launch new products, but then they don't know what to say to their customer, how to make this more meaningful. So they just want to have displays, banners, engaging material like QR code, like lucky draw, like gadgets, like pictures to create banners and visual exposures. So all these are very there are tools that have to be constantly updated. So wineries that just tend to have, the brochure and the website, this is not enough for Asian market and consumers. So it's really important to be creative and to fit the digital era that also Anna was mentioning earlier. So innovation, a lot of creativity, a shift towards more effective storytelling on the points of sales. That can be the restaurant, helping with education, maybe the service staff to be more confident into promoting wine, and in retailers, an online shop where the buyer have to be sure they're adding a wine that can stand out from the shelf. This is my experience so far. There is so much to say, but let's say trying to understand pricing and channels strategy are the most effective approach when you need to analyze market by market needs.
Very good, Vera. Well, I can tell you that in New Zealand, just briefly, my experience, the restaurant channel being the key to expand the wine penetration in the market, especially because in New Zealand there's a missing Italian community, as you were mentioning in some parts of Asia, like in Australia, for example, very similar market to New Zealand. However, there are millions of Italians living in Australia. In New Zealand, there is almost none. We have very, very, very small number. But through restaurants that are really the tasting rooms, where people get a familiar approach, maybe for first time Italian wines, you're able to push wines online and help the distribution, because I think the restaurant channel, at least in New Zealand, is the key channel. I have a question now for Anna, and maybe this time we go more into specific activities. What are some of the specific activities that Ethica implemented in Asia, Anna?
Yeah, let me tell you that to answer this question, but in close connection to what Vera said, is that one key ingredient of whatever we do in Asia is about passion. And it's not just passion for Italian wine and Italian heritage, but also passion for whatever we find and discover and embrace in every single market. And that's, I believe, the key to, just change the way Italian wine is perceived and adopted across Asian markets. The approach must be inside out instead of outside in. So the first thing you want to do is find a way to create a cultural connection between what you're trying to sell and the local lifestyle. So there's a lot about, first of all, explaining Asia Pacific to the wineries. You are here and you localize the conversation so that it becomes relevant for the winery in that particular context. The second is a lot of education, not just of F&B operators or retailers, but also about also of consumers. But consumers don't really like to be educated; they like to be entertained. That's why Vera spoke a lot about the way we communicate, the way we engage, the way we share experiences. So what have we done in this respect? I have to say that I've been experiencing this firsthand in the last, say, 12 months. And it's been a fantastic journey for me as well as a non-wine expert, unlike all my colleagues at Ethica Wines. Wine Academy is really something they take very seriously. And it's about not just understanding each and every wine, but interacting with wine. Make it part of something bigger that is the way you want to live this wine in your hotel, in your bar or restaurant or shop. So make it part of the conversation in a way that makes sense for you, customer, and ultimately for your end consumers. And we've been no longer than 2 months ago in an incredibly entertaining wine blind tasting session in Seoul that blew the entire audience away. There were people that were on a bus for 3 hours just to attend this session. And unusual suspects guessed the wines well and won. And you can only do that if you have credibility in what you're offering. And it's been a sensational experience for all of us, I can tell you, not just the, say, newcomers or the special guests, but also for the people like Vera and the regional sales managers that speak and drink wine every single day. So Wine Academy 2.0, new dimension, interactive, digital, and extremely engaging. That's really one of the big things we're doing. The other thing is we want to localize the brand experience. And in this, we need to have the trust of producers. There is one fantastic example that is really proving to be successful in terms of numbers and not just in terms of equity, so to say, that is with La Gioiosa. We have decided to really, there is terminology that I use a lot, tropicalize the experience and give this beautiful yellow bottle a new dimension. So we asked a manga designer to create a little, say, cartoon around the bottle, which eventually got a Chinese name. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it well, but Vera can correct me, Huan Dong Dong, which means happy yellow monster. And this new character is engaging with consumers even before they try the wine. So it creates a connection. It creates a new dimension of entertainment and communication. And you know why you need to do that? Because as Vera said, there is a lot of wine and there is very little knowledge and education about Italian wine. So of course, the first thing you need to do is to be present. But the second thing you need to do is to stand out of the crowd and say something different, something new, something that really connects with the audience. I do believe that this is the part that we're really exploring the most now, making sure, of course, that the winery has trust in us and wants to, embrace the opportunity and the experiment, because a lot of those is also experimentation. But really, with this inside out approach, we bring you the wine, but then the wine gets part of your life and not the other way around.
That's fantastic. I like the Juan Don Don customization to the local market. This seems to be exactly what we're talking about. This is a perfect example.
It's really cool.
Yes, very, very good. Absolutely. The next question would be for Vera. And again, it's a question of cultural differences among markets and how that is going to impact on which wine styles are more suited to various Asian markets and which Italian denominations are more popular. Again, a broad question. Sorry, Vera, you get all the broad questions to you.
I know, but I'm very happy to have this chance because this is really our daily life and passion, as Anna was mentioning. And this is what we try to do with the commitment, not just to make our brands, let's say, more successful or received by customers, but to be at the service, at the entire Italian wine category. So we really think big when we try to create a new way to engage consumers. And as Anna was mentioning, this initiative took us a few years, but now is really giving its fruits. So we were, as you were mentioning, which wines are more suitable for Asian markets? I would say impossible to say. Why? Because the market is changing so fast that on one side you have the establishment, and on the other side you have what these new consumers are happy and prone to try and experiment. So these two roads, let's say, they run one on the side of the other. I give you an example in China, as we were mentioning just now. On the one side, you have the usual wine market, which are big, bold reds, maybe for collectors, very expensive to be used as presents, either from France or from Italy. But on the other side, you have the need that the new consumers we meet express very clearly for easier to drink, more affordable to buy, easier to understand, easier to play with. And so you have the establishment, but for us, it's much more interesting investing in what can be new trends. So whatever is easy, fun, engaging, still very rooted in our culture, but more playful and more meaningful for Asian lifestyle. This is what we want to invest our energies on. And I would say that every Italian wine really fit this category. So sparklings, lighter reds, whites, wine that you can have in every occasion are what is now, I mean, I think will suit the Asian market of the future. On the side, you will still keep having the establishment, but this is for minor consumption, maybe at the restaurants or maybe for collectors. So for us, it's more interesting to bet in what can be the future expansion or new trends like ready to drinks or wine, what we call wine cocktails. We are now experimenting a lot with Bellini, Mimosa, Rossini, some categories that, of course, Asian consumers have never came across before. And to reply to your question, are they suitable or not for Asian markets? Nobody knew. But we're just trying, putting, the product out there in very engaging situations. And we have amazing, enthusiastic feedback by every age or kind of consumers, not just the younger generations that we were expecting originally. So it's true, the most popular so far Italian appellations are Barolo, Amarone, Chianti Classico, Brunello, Sicilian wines, Puglia wines, so like Primitivo or Nero d'Avola, but there is a space for basically everything from Italy.
Very good, Vera. And I have a related question. And again, I link it to my New Zealand experience. How is the Italian food availability in the market helping promoting Italian wines? And I'm saying that because I notice how the hospitality industry in New Zealand has been improving the last 10 years. So it's not just the number of Italian restaurants, it's the quality and the authenticity. For example, now there is a trend towards regional restaurants like Sicilian, Emilia-Romagna restaurants, And of course, local wines, they would follow. And this is how you promote these wines. And eventually they go online and you distribute them. Is the food availability an issue? And which market in Asia do you think still have a gap? And which one is more advanced in this regard?
Yeah, you're right. Pacific is very much connected with the Italian culture, so Australia and New Zealand, and this really helps. It's a solid base. It's like a great window to expose and try the great biodiversity of Italian offer. Together with that, I would add Japan for sure. In Japan, you find places like Tripperia or, really the most specialized, even those places that are not present in Italy, they invent a concept for that. So Japan is so much into replication of food culture that this plays a big role, and also a renewed enthusiasm, even in the new generations, for Italian wines. Thailand, I was mentioning before, has a great presence of expats, and the Thai culture is historically much intertwined with relationship with the Italian culture. So this definitely helps in one of the most difficult markets with the highest taxation. It's unbelievable to see how much Italian wine is consumed. So this definitely helps. The bigger gaps are in the rest of Southeast Asia. Honestly, you go Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines. Yeah, you find here and there. Now there is a global trend in Asia, I would say, that is a pizza, Napolitan pizza or gourmet pizza. So this is really now going to step ahead in quality and communication, and it helps the consumption of Italian wine, and especially the casual Italian wines we were mentioning before. But on the other side is still quite scattered here and there. Some nice chains in Vietnam, a couple of good pizzeria in the Philippines, but this is not enough. So there is a big gap to fill there, I would say. But on the other side, what we are really trying to do is not only to approach Italian restaurants, but is to try to make Italian wine fit in the local Asian restaurants. So we try to skip these barriers and create more consumption or in this even cross concept. So there are Italian Japanese restaurants or, Pan-Asian, but with a Mediterranean twist. So Italian quality and dishes, let's say, are so much well appreciated and even copied in all the cuisines that are now also with new trends really mixing up in Asia. So we don't think this is a barrier. We just try to overcome it. But of course, more good Italian food is needed, especially for us living there.
Absolutely. I can't agree more, Vera. Next question is for Anna before the final message. So the question is related to the online distribution channel. How important is that for Asia? I can tell you that in New Zealand online, my website is the number one customer for my company. So that tells you how important it is. But I would like Anna just to give us an idea of the potential of this distribution channel.
So first of all, this is really something we are analyzing very closely because at the end of the day, if you want to improve the way you engage and you connect with Asian consumers, proximity, convenience, availability are essential. A number of things that talk in favor of this opportunity. There are a lot of marketplaces, as we spoke about already, digitization. There's a very blurry line between media and retail, also in the way you interact with this infrastructure. And of course, the beautiful thing about direct to consumer is that you control the brand narrative. So you really have this direct connection between the brand and its consumers. And you get a lot of first party data, which of course are essential to develop growth strategies. It looks very rosy, but there are some barriers. First and most important is the very complex regulation across the continent, the dominance of traditional players in the route to market, and also the need of considerable marketing investment to do a good job when it comes to explore this area. So my conclusion so far, Marco, is that it is definitely worth exploring, but not for individual brands, rather as a pack, again, to create scale and cost synergies, of course, and not as a replacement of what we call the traditional route to market, but as an enrichment of that. So it has to be seen in a complementary way. We will not disregard importers and distributors for that matter, but this could be an easy way to get to know Italian wines and therefore also indirectly improve their business with Italian wines. That would be my 2 cents so far.
Absolutely, I agree 100%. Yes, it's a complementary, very important channel. I would go now for a final message from you both. And just I can add one small message as well. So the whole point of this conversation is to try to, for audience, to understand how companies like Ethica can fill this gap between the winery and the importers. And because the typical situation, as we said at the beginning, is maybe having one export manager or two export managers covering the globe, the planet. And obviously, it becomes unrealistic to expect this gap to be filled by this kind of setup. So what we've been discussing here is the potential to fill up this gap in an efficient and the productive way. And I think I hope we gave some good ideas. So I would pass on to Anna and Vera. You two, you decide which one wants to go first for the final message.
Vera, you want to go first?
Okay, I will try to summarize what we have been saying today. That is our global reach is what has enriched us the most and what we are really investing on. So getting closer and closer to consumers, to the clients, to grasp trends and create meaningful presence in the consumer's life, no matter the appellation, the brand. This is really our mission, and be present on the side, working all across the supply chain from logistic to sales to marketing is what we really want. And hopefully we can create a new trend in the mindset of consumers and producers alike.
And to build on top of that, what I would like to say is that our team is a bunch of people that loves Italian wine and we love Asia. This is the place we call home. And that's why we want to act as enablers and ambassadors to develop, together with the wineries and together with our local customers, bold, fresh, and culturally active strategies to accelerate our ability to create growth for these fantastic products and brands. That's our main dream.
Well, very good, Anna and Vera. Thanks, grazie to take part into this conversation, and I'm sure it's been useful for people listening. And I'll pass on to the coordinator, to Beatrice. And thank you again. Grazie.
Thank you so much, guys. That was really an in-depth and an amazing discussion about Asian market. And I sincerely thank you so much for the time and effort to be in the same place for doing this interview. How are you doing, guys?
Very good. Yes, fantastic.
Awesome.
Okay.
Great. It was a pleasure.
Great experience. Thanks for having us.
That was a pleasure for us. So
We
to
will
wrap
see
it
you
up.
in Asia.
Yeah. So for wrap it up, for those who are interested to participate, just send us a DM through our Instagram or mail our Italian Wine Podcast producer at info@italianwinepodcast.com. Thank you so much for everyone who's listening, and thank you again, Marco, Anna, and Vera. That was amazing. And that's a wrap from Italian Wine Podcast. Ciao, ciao!
Ciao.
Grazie,
Cheers.
ciao. Ciao a tutti. Ci vediamo.
Ciao.
Grazie.
Listen to the Italian Wine Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Himalaya FM, and more. Don't forget to subscribe and rate the show. If you enjoy listening, please consider donating through ItalianWinePodcast.com. Any amount helps cover equipment, production, and publication costs. Until next time, cin cin.